Okay, we are live. I
We're
say
live
that every time. All right,
every time.
nice to see you,
Good to see you too,
dude. Nice
boss.
to
Did you
be
get a
able to
haircut?
see you. Nice that you can see me as well.
I'm
So,
grateful that I can see you.
yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Hey, listen, um, it's been, man, it's just eventful times, man. Really, really eventful times. And we had a good class yesterday. We talked about Bad Bunny. And
Great.
we did a version of this class last semester, but this time we had an exam yesterday. So I said, you know what? Let me take like 35 or 40 minutes, and let me just talk, because I don't
Okay.
ever take time to do that in
Yeah,
class.
yeah, yeah. So there was no volunteers this time. You were just doing a
Nah, no
nice little
volunteers.
lecture.
Yeah, I was going to
Cool.
take time at the end for questions and comments, but we could anybody here who watched, they can throw questions up if you want. There were a
Mhm.
couple on the stream, but I didn't have time for them because it was a shortened version of things.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
but it was good. Yeah, like I just wanted to
What
kind
did
of
you
talk a
say?
little bit about some of the controversy, or just talk a little bit, having a deeper understanding of what this is all about.
Right, because people are very polarized on this.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't
Most
think?
people,
Okay,
yeah,
maybe
most
not.
people are not, right? I mean, most people are
Okay.
not even, they don't care, whatever. So
Mhm.
it's a football.
You don't think enough polarized enough to have like an alternative halftime show? And or like, yeah, how
Well,
do you see it? How do you see it?
evidently we were polarized enough for that. But I mean, someone jumped into that, but
Mhm.
the idea is, people really don't have an understanding of Spanish in this country, right? And I was showing a map of about two-thirds at the time that we were in the final stages of battling for to make this country, the United States, right? During the Revolutionary War. Spain controlled basically two-thirds of what is the United States. I mean, this is like, so it really was part of what would be
Really?
Mexico, but yeah, I mean, this is like this, the Americas were Spanish Americas, like obviously they weren't able to hold the Americas in a way, but
Hmm.
um, yeah, I mean,
Which,
so when we think about so the question I was trying to ask is like, well, why is it, why are people, why do so many people speak Spanish here? It's because the Spanish speakers didn't overrun the border to the United States. The border to the United States overran the lives of Spanish speakers in the country. It's just slowly more and more land. And then, by the time, by like, I think I had a map of, I think it was like 1830. So, shortly before the Civil War, that
interesting.
still Mexico went all the way up into California and, Arizona, New Mexico, parts of Colorado, Nevada, like that was all Mexico. So,
Um,
it's like we miss that. People miss an understanding of that like all those
mhm.
people, when we changed the border and to the current border of Mexico and the US, those people didn't all leave. They stayed and they kept speaking Spanish. So,
Hmm. Hmm. This is
45
so,
million Spanish speakers.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It is so interesting to the prompt that we have this week for World in Conversation is like, I think it's like who is or what does it mean to be a true American, or like who is a true American, and just like this is so interesting,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
piece of
yeah,
data that you're
yeah,
introducing.
yeah,
Wow. Okay, so that was one
yeah,
side.
yeah, 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 yeah. So the idea is, I mean, but obviously the vast majority of people were native peoples. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Mhm.
And I mean, the tribes, we have, hundreds of what, I mean, the tribes federally recognized, 700 or so, 500,
Mhm.
700. It's 574, I think it is.
Mhm.
Uh,
So you're saying like people have this misconception that it's like, oh, all these immigrants are like coming in to the United States and they're
yeah,
speaking Spanish and they're not speaking like
yeah,
our English language, but you're trying to say like, hey, like, we when this country was created, we actually expanded into territories that were already dominantly Spanish speaking.
Well, probably in truth, there were the population would have been more people speaking their indigenous languages all over the
Right.
that part of the United States. So like
Right.
all the
Okay.
tribes with their different languages. But but the point
Right.
being it's controlled by Spain, and so, whatever. Yeah, the
Right.
point, it's simply this idea that, you know, you have um just to really reshape the way we think about things. And, 45 million or so Spanish speakers in this country. I mean, it's a lot of people. It's 14% of the population. So,
Hmm.
and Puerto Rico, and I talked about Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico is a commonwealth, the United States. We won
Right.
Puerto Rico in the war, Spanish American War in
Hmm.
1898.
Hmm.
So like it is, where Spanish is the language of Puerto Rico. So it
Hmm.
is, and for all intents and purposes, in a certain sense, it's not really, but in a way it's the 51st state, right? And Guam
Hmm.
would be the 52nd, I suppose.
Hmm.
So, they have voting, they don't have voting members in Congress, but they have a representative in Congress and
Hmm.
pay taxes and the whole thing, so.
Right. And so, like, introduce like your purpose and intention for like introducing, this content in your
Yeah.
lecture. What did you want people to know, or what was the core piece of
Well,
information you
just
wanted people to to get?
yeah, that's a good question. I think just dial down the struggle, right? Especially with Spanish as a language. I mean, there certainly is a way that, of course they have this guy singing at the Super Bowl in Spanish. It's fine. Like, it's like up, lift up Puerto Rico at the very least, like, hey, here's our so-called 51st state in a way. Let's at least elevate that and elevate the language to something
Right.
that's kind of, I don't know, just as a certain status. Like it's not such like a really, people say it's like un-American. Well, Puerto Rican's quite American, man. Puerto Ricans have US passports. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you
What,
they, they have citizenship. It is considered citizenship, so that's quite American.
where you being a professor and sociologist who's always thinking about both sides, what do you think the people that are saying these things about it being un-American, or what are they trying to say, or what do you
Yeah,
think
that's a good
they
question.
want
I
people
think
to
what it
understand?
is, yeah, I talked about this also yesterday. What it is basically is that, there's a lot of change. I showed a map of the change over the past like 15 or 20 years of how many more foreign-born residents are in counties, the percentage increase in foreign-born residents in counties all around the country. And it's increased almost everywhere. Almost everywhere. There's an increase in number of foreign-born people. So it's like, you look around and you're like, hey, wait, what's with all these uh, um, Chinese that I suddenly see, or all these, Mexicans, or all these Cubans, or Russians, or what Koreans, or whatever it is. It's like, wait, who are these people? Like, where'd they come from? Like, why? I didn't see this when I was a kid. I suddenly, everywhere I turn, there's all these people who are seem foreign to me, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's
Uh-huh.
true. There are a lot of people. And I think people feel like the Super Bowl is this thing that's, it's like apple pie and Ford pickup trucks or something, right? So
Right.
it's this Americana thing. I don't know what Americana is, but there's something in that, that so
Mm.
suddenly all this change happens and people feel a little you feel it's uncertain. Like, wait, where are we going? Right? Especially
Hmm.
given that each year, each decade, the percentage of white Americans decreases,
Uh-huh.
and will soon be less than half. And
Uh-huh.
yes, people feel some kind of way about that.
Right.
We're losing. I mean, really, we're changing. So many things are changing, and I understand that. Like I talked about how for me it doesn't matter because I'm a very much this globalist. I travel
Right.
around. I speak Spanish. I think I like when the global comes to me. That's why I teach the class.
Right.
But if I didn't have that, if I had never left Toledo, Ohio, and I'm just kind of like staking my roots there and like just kind of what is tradition for me, and I'm gonna
Hmm.
feel, I mean, I'm gonna feel some kind of hey, wait, what the hell? What's going on? So
Mm.
I
It's
understand that. Yeah.
yeah, it's really interesting. It's like our I like how you introduced the word tradition because it makes me think about, because at first I was going to ask you just a culture-based question, but then now that you're offering up tradition, even at World in Conversation, we had a dialogue about like what is American culture or like what is culture, and in
Yeah.
some of the dialogues it goes into what is American culture. And some students will find themselves saying
Mm.
like, oh, America doesn't have a culture. You know what I mean? But then like when something like this happens, it almost is a mirror of like what is American culture, or is it like that American culture is changing or that American traditions are competing with American culture, which is embodying
Yeah,
many different cultures?
yeah, those
Or
are really good questions. Yeah. Well, I'm not certain what American culture is a mixed. It's a Creole, right? It's a mixture of so many different things, and then there are parts of it that really are parts of it, right? Like Ford or Chevy pickups, right? Like it's like that's American culture, man. I mean, there are certain things, right? But uh I mean, you can go anywhere in the world and see a Ford or a Chevy pickup, but nonetheless, I mean, there are certain things that are part of it. And, but,
Mhm.
I think I was saying that, you sort of, we, like, I look back to my childhood and I think, oh man, if I had kids, I want my kids to do certain things. I want to play baseball with them or I want to play football with them. But what if suddenly, like, I don't play football because there's no football anymore. It's all soccer. And I'm like, wait, when
Right,
the hell did this happen? Like,
right.
so,
So
you
fear
know,
of traditions being kind of
yeah.
changed, like evolving or
Yeah.
whatever
Yep. Yep.
word.
Yep. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
similar to that. And I understand that. Like there's nothing that's not a problem. I don't think people need to be like me. Like yeah, I like to travel and I'm happy. I love speaking Spanish and I've lived in around the world. I've lived in Latin America, Spanish speaking countries for over 2 years. And that's part of who I am, like I appreciate that. But I don't think other people should be like that. I don't think you need to travel. I don't think you need to speak a second language. I don't think any of those things are in play.
Mhm.
But if you don't travel and speak another language and do things like that, then when change comes at you from outside of your culture,
Mhm.
it's gonna be harder to really understand what that means, probably.
Mhm.
You might be
What?
curious about it. For
Uh-huh.
many people, it's going to be more difficult. I think I would
Mhm.
say that. Yeah.
And there's also like some rhetoric going around or some comments about like, oh, we don't want our United States to turn into like this is quote from what somebody said I saw on social media, like some reporter, I don't know, about like we don't want America to turn into like what the UK is or something. Like how
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
immigrants have this is what they're saying or what I've heard. So I'm not saying this,
Yeah.
that immigrants have like come in and like ruined the UK and
Yeah.
or and how much of yeah, what do you think about that? Just when Americans are saying that they're afraid of that
Well,
type of
well, I think it's uh I think it makes sense. Like I can see why people would have that feeling, but what I would also say is that um, the globalized world is upon us, so we're not going backward. We're not going to be able to we're not going to be able to hold on to these things, right? Just
right.
like when
Hmm.
I was like in the 1970s and growing up in Toledo, which is very much a car town and just south of Detroit, which very much is the center of auto manufacturing in the country. Everybody, they were all out against Japanese cars and then later Korean cars and foreign cars, buy American, right? Well, that was kind of a big thing for about 5 years or so. And then that just died away. Like the Japanese just made a better car. and they lasted longer. And if you wanted a car that lasted, it became pretty clear. If if It became pretty clear that um, that if you want to, if you buy a Toyota or a Honda, you were going to get a car that's going to last a longer period of time. And then
Mm-hmm.
suddenly it just kind of that whole sentiment that, foreign cars are a problem just slowly died away. And
Mm-hmm.
the American auto workers, and they continued to push that idea, but it just didn't have any traction. And that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
where I think we are when cultural change happens, you
It
know?
like where we are, like as in, things start to become implemented or assimilated once we start to see the utility of it or the
Yeah.
benefit
Yeah, yeah,
of.
yeah. Yeah, that's right, man. That's right. We start to see that. And so, it's just, yeah, that's what it is. But I understand why why you have a certain fear of that. But also, listen, 45 million Americans speak Spanish. So it's like, all right, here we go. Just like that's all right. The guy comes, Bad Bunny, and he raps in Spanish. Like, okay. I mean, I get why that's a problem. Well, I understand why people would see that's a problem, but I would also say, well, hang on though, but Puerto Rico's part of these are citizens of the United States. This isn't a foreign land. So
Hmm.
it's like you do have to up your game a little bit in terms of understanding what's going on. And then you got to be
Right,
like, all right, this is our 60th Super Bowl. So let's have one where we celebrate Puerto Rico
right,
and
right.
Spanish speakers. That's okay.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
so I
Wow.
don't know. I mean, but
Yeah.
I get what people are saying. All right, man. Let's I think we have a couple people to bring on, or one or two or whatever, so we can bring a couple people on. And
Nice.
Elizabeth,
Hey,
wait, you are
oh, you're
you are
muted.
muted, so yeah, yeah, it's cool. I like having some conversations with folks.
Yeah,
And
see, I'm
yeah,
I'm
it's
curious.
so
There.
Elijah, there you are. How are you?
Sorry, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, where are you, by the way?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Is that where you're from
No,
originally?
no, I grew up on the West Coast. My dad was in the Air Force,
Ah, okay.
and we primarily stayed on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Spent some time in Guam and a couple other places, but California mainly.
Hey, wait. Okay, so yesterday, so we talked about Puerto Rico, and I also mentioned Guam.
Guam, uh-huh.
What what's it like being on Guam? I mean, yeah, tell me about Guam. Like what is
uh, Rainy.
yeah.
Very tropical, but it's very similar to like the Philippines.
Yeah, yeah. But is it so we have a huge base in Guam, right? Like
Uh-huh.
what
Air
but
Force.
what's beyond the base and yeah, what's beyond that? Like
Um, they have it's very kind of rural, and I mean at least when I was there, which would have been in like the 80s.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
And then ocean.
Wow. Yeah. It'd be
I
net
mean
must
it,
be
it was it was neat to, like I grew up, scuba diving and all that kind of stuff, snorkeling, and so it was nice.
yeah, man. Okay, that's cool. Yeah. I know I never talked to anybody from Guam. I mean, obviously, well, people who sort of gone through there in the military, but
Yeah.
yeah, I guess that would, huh. Hey, so anyway, so Jeff said he wanted to bring you on to talk about just what you see in terms of race and racism or different
Hmm.
things.
So what I guess what kind of surprised me, so growing up in California, and on the West Coast, I didn't really like, I knew about slavery, what they teach in school. Um, I'm a biology major and art history. And so I didn't really go much into, you know, any other, you know, I guess like philosophy or anything like that.
Hmm.
Um, so growing up, race is just a different thing on the West Coast. Like, I don't know that I really recognized that there was a problem with it or anything when I was growing up until moving to the Midwest and being around here and being around, my ex-husband's family and stuff. And it was shocking at first. Like, it was definitely culture shock and weird. It was so much so. I recently went on a cruise with my best friend, and we usually cruise out of Galveston, which is southern Texas. We wanted to do the Mexican Riviera, so we flew to Long Beach and cruised out of there. I was like, it was a noticeable change, the diversity in the cruise, and just, it to me, it was nice being home, but I was just like, okay, so it's not just me imagining this. The Midwest and South are still having issues.
Yeah.
What was what were you seeing in like the noticeable change from like what was the difference can you describe the difference that you were seeing?
So in the cruise from California, it was very multicultural. We had Black people, we had Asian people, we had Mexican people, white people, and out of like Galveston, you're gonna see predominantly white and maybe a handful of Black people.
But did people get on with one another? Or did they remain really separated? Like, what's your feeling?
The one in California, people were just very friendly, and like we if you sat next to a table, they would talk to you and stuff like that. Whereas the one in Galveston, you'll see that with like white people, and then the other races kind of keep to themselves, or they'll like stay within their race.
Yeah. I noticed that I mean, we see it in cities, right? In big cities. I see it in New York. I see it we were just out in LA, and man, where people, it's just one big, I mean, there are obviously subtle things that are happening, but it's just one mixture of human beings who just all engage with one another.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't see the like the separation, so to speak.
Yeah.
How
Like
is that? How do you see like, but that doesn't, but do you think that naturally, how does, or do you think it naturally translates over into attitudes or about people, or do you think it's people just remain in their separate worlds, but they don't really send bullets toward, like daggers toward other people,
Um, like in the Midwest, I definitely take like interracial marriage. Um, I think.
Hey, so Elizabeth, so the idea, I'm with you on that. Like when we were in LA, it's a little different for me here in State College is the way I am integrated in here in my life in State College. It's very, it's very multicultural, multi-ethnic, multinational, et cetera, right? But it could be very easy to be here and not be like that. And I was struck when we were out in LA, I was just struck by like, man, everybody was different. Everybody's from somewhere else, I mean, other parts of the US too. I mean, there were plenty of white people I was engaging with, but they were like, it was just everybody was engaging one another. I walk into a room and there's people from 6 countries and they're working at this one spot and they're all just getting on with each other.
Yeah.
There's a way that's very smooth.
I was curious, Elizabeth, like when you said, because you were like, yeah, there's a lot of historical racism, out where you are. And I was just wondering kind of like what you see out there, like even when you brought the example up of like passing somebody in the grocery store, it's just like, are there what have you seen that I guess has like maybe perpetuated this like this tension or unease that you're seeing? Are you seeing like there's those you're seeing groups that are just like maybe have certain traditions or like values or views that just continue to get passed down and you've kind of been able to see these things, or is it like where are you observing it, or like what is it?
So I think it feels like when you pass someone in the grocery store, even or just even on the street, it just feels very awkward and uncomfortable. I think a lot of that comes from like I said, like my ex in-laws. Um, when I when we moved
Yeah,
out
what do you see
here and
there? Yeah.
I like went to dinner with them and stuff, just the words they used and
Yeah.
are still they're still using the N word and out here, and they're still, it's just
Hmm.
shocking. And I think it's so derogatory that people are that way out
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
Mm.
Even-
and that other races cause
Yeah.
crime and
Yeah.
they cause your home values to go
Yeah.
down, and they have you know
Wow. And
Whereas like in California, right, 40% of the population of the state, I think, is white. So it's like
yeah,
it's not about that, you know. It
yeah,
could, but I think that, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think that, people, you have to engage people. You have to engage with people and get to know people. Go to their
mhm,
houses for dinner, meet them in places, be worshiping with them on a Sunday or a Saturday
yeah,
or whenever it is. You just have to do that. There's a certain level of comfort that you get to where you stop really noticing, you know, and you realize that I'm talking to you, Elizabeth, and it's the same if I'm talking to somebody of Chinese ancestry who I'm having this conversation with, and it just, it's just comfortable. Yeah, I hear that.
yeah. Well, and a lot of Midwesterners, they'll say, like, if you throw a baseball, you're going to hit
Yeah,
a
yeah,
church or a Sonic,
yeah.
one of the two. um I can't even tell you the name of a Black person in like a church that I attend.
Yeah,
Like, I don't
yeah,
even know that there are any. I don't even know that
yeah,
there are any Hispanic people.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think they are still so strongly rooted in like Southern Baptist, and
Hmm, hmm.
um they don't, what other races don't feel comfortable.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting, right? I was the other day, I don't know what I was doing, but I was listening to this talk that was at one of the big conventions. I think it might have been like the Southern Baptist convention, and they were arguing about homosexuality was their thing, right? And the LGBT community and what they were going to do as a congregation, right? And then they were panning the crowd, and I was seeing like, I saw like, oh, there's like this kind of small Asian section, and there's a black section here, and I thought, oh my God, you're all in the same church, but now you're
Yeah.
coming together for this convention, but it's like kind of separated in a way, so. I don't know.
Mm.
I just noticed that. I don't think that's true across the board, but it certainly was true there.
Wow.
Well, anyway, yeah, I think it really is a good reminder. I think because for me, it's a good reminder to have you, to have you say that because Elijah, probably sometimes I feel like I don't know, I just miss because I am so multicultural and I am so
Mhm.
used to being around so many different things that I forget and I don't hang out with people who would drop the N bomb,
Yeah,
right?
I don't either.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, it's just like I'm not there,
Or
so
like
I'm
you're not
like, yeah,
surrounded by that, you don't see yourself surrounded by that. Like not that you not saying that you hang out with them, but just like how that's not you don't see that in your environment. How Elizabeth is saying like, oh, she sees
yeah,
that in the environment, even if it's in the grocery store
Yeah.
or like in
w-
the
w-
groups of people that live in those
yeah,
spaces, you know, just being with her husband who may not think that way, but then the family members do because of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
history
Well,
of that region or
even
whatever.
people who even people who don't want to see multiculturalism, man, I just assume that everybody, it's like, like, yeah, man, it's cool. Like, yeah, whatever. This is awesome, right? Like, I can imagine if I were going on a cruise, I could imagine like, yeah, I don't want to go on a cruise with all one group of people, but
Yeah.
like, yeah, whatever. Well, I wouldn't go on a cruise anyway, but all right. Well, anyway, nothing against cruises. I don't want to be stuck in a boat like that. Like, oh man, there's
Yeah.
something about that freaks me out.
It's actually kind of fun because, like, at least the way I see it, so many of the people that work on the ship
Yeah,
are from all over.
totally.
Like, I literally, like, I just want to talk to them all. Like,
Yeah,
forget the ports. I would be happy just to sit in a room and be like, so where are you from? Tell me
yeah,
about life. Tell me, what was it
yeah,
like growing up there? I'm just,
yeah. That's cool. Well, that's why then you watched Social 19 stuff, right?
yeah, yeah.
Because you have those questions. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I just saw an article earlier today, and the title with the article was like, "Why America?" And then, it's like, oh,
It's so funny you said that my name says Laurie or did say Laurie, and I feel like Laurie would have a response based on what Elizabeth said. So I'm gonna body Laurie and tell me if I do it right. This is what Laurie would say. She would say, "You are a bridge person, my
yeah,
friend."
yeah,
Those who are
yeah,
curious about others
yeah. That's cool.
and want to, bring people to understand,
Yes.
what I'm curious about, and
Yeah,
it's
that's
awesome.
cool.
Um, so it's actually been 10 years. I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer 10 years ago. And being diagnosed, they do a genetic screening on you now. And I tested positive for the BRCA gene and the Ashkenazi Jewish gene. And I was like, we're not Jewish. And so my dad, after, and I would have been like 36 when this happened. I sat down with my parents, and my dad was like, we actually are. Um, he said, I'm a first generation American. And so growing up, I had no idea.
Whoa.
My
Oh, yeah,
dad,
yeah.
his father, was from France and ended up joining, like, his unit got during World War II, his unit died, or a lot of them did. And so he got pulled into an American unit that like found some of the Holocaust camps. And that's how he met his wife. He like they freed a camp, and those people came with that unit to a safer place. And he got to spend time with her. And then because he was like in that unit, they allowed him and her to come to America. And then that's where my dad was born.
Whoa, that's the beginning of a wild story. Oh,
Yeah.
that's intense.
And I had no idea. I found out when I was 36. That
Wow.
Damn.
only because I was diagnosed with breast cancer that, we're, half or a fourth Jewish and a fourth
Yeah,
French.
yeah. Damn. Wow, that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Hey, that's
Wow.
cool. Cool story.
Wow.
And
Did
Not
you
the
ever,
breast cancer part,
right.
oh
but
yeah, but yeah.
Wait,
yeah,
did you
that's
ever ask how come I didn't know
So I
sooner?
did.
Or
And I
yeah.
even told him, I remember meeting it would have been my dad's aunt at like a not a retirement center, like an old folks home, like, because it was in the 80s. And I remember like her having numbers on her arm. But they didn't, I didn't really think much of it. I didn't know because I was probably like second or third grade. And then she
Mm.
passed away. my grandmother, his mom passed away before I was born.
Mhm.
And so he he said that growing up, they didn't talk about it
Yeah.
because it was, you know, dangerous and scary and everything she had gone through.
Mhm.
You know, she lost pretty much her entire family
Mhm.
to the Germans, and you know, it was such a traumatic thing that they just were scared it would happen again, and so they never talked about it.
Mm.
They
Um,
like she still so she still like observed certain Jewish customs,
Uh-huh.
but my grandfather was Catholic, so they went to a Catholic church and all that. It wasn't till after this I went out to visit my aunt, my dad's sister, and we found an old box that had like a menorah in it and everything else. So
Whoa. Ah, that's so
wow.
intense.
yeah,
Yeah. It's so man, isn't it wild that how for human beings, the response from human beings to suffering and tragedy
yeah,
and all the horrors, the really terrible things was to not talk about it.
yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, for it's only, in really recent years, the Vietnam War, the
yeah,
post-Vietnam period, in the West anyway, that we really started to talk about things, certainly here in the United States. And I think that we probably led the world in that. Yeah. Man, imagine like living your life and we do a good job of compartmentalizing, right? Well, you were talking about the racism, right? People could be could have such negative thoughts about certain groups of people, but in their minds, just put that in a box over here in this part of their mind, and the rest of their lives, they move on as though it's not a problem. So I guess it's a similar process.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Wow, that's so intense, man. Wow, imagine being able to talk to her about
I
that.
know. I would have loved
Mm.
to be able to like actually get her story and learn more about
Yeah,
her.
yeah, yeah. It's
wow.
intense.
That's
Hey, so listen, yeah, thanks for
Well, thanks
coming
for having
on.
me.
Like thanks for
yeah.
talking. Yeah, thanks for watching the videos, most
It
importantly.
it's something I never took in college, and
Mhm.
I kind of stumbled across your lately and kind of just learning, and I appreciate everything that you're doing and what you're teaching the next
Oh,
generations. And it's nice to know that there are professors out there like you that are doing that.
yeah, very cool. Yeah, very, very cool. It's nice seeing other people watching.
Yes, and actually my 17-year-old on Zoom, and she was like, what?
Yeah,
Because
oh, that's cool.
I'm like not a technical person. What are you talking about? So she
That's
wants to go to
awesome.
Penn State,
Yeah.
What?
and so she
Dang,
Okay.
she's
watches
gonna
your
be a
videos.
volunteer
Yeah,
up in
yeah,
class.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's
cool. Oh
Yep.
man. Okay. Well, tell her to be in touch at some point. All right. All right. Hey,
and
thanks
thanks for
for
Yeah.
sharing. Yeah.
yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah,
Thanks
be
for having
well.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You too. Bye bye.
Yeah, that's cool.
That was
Man,
awesome.
that's it's so man, dude, the stories are just so the human stories, man. The stories we make, the stories we tell,
Mm,
the stories that we carry with us throughout life.
yeah.
Man,
Wow, that could be a book title.
yeah,
Yeah, it's so
yeah,
true. And what you get when you receive those stories,
yeah,
oh man, like receiving them
yeah,
is profound.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Man, you know, I'm like I'm sitting though with this idea of like her grandmother, that part of her. First off, I'm really obsessed. I wouldn't say obsessed by it, but I spend a lot of time listening to videos of people who survived the World War II Holocaust.
Mm,
And what we're seeing is there's so many people later in life, because now we're at this space in the world where people open up and tell their stories. And so
mhm.
we're finding all of these people in the past 20 years or so who are, in their 70s and 80s
Wow.
who have started to tell their stories on video. And so you can watch any number of people and
Wow.
soldiers. The other night, I spent 2 hours just binge watching the testimony of soldiers from World War II, including soldiers who liberated the camps. And
Wow.
they were these men they were by that time in their 80s and early 90s, and they were being
Mhm,
interviewed.
mhm.
Damn, man. And so I just binge watched. It was 2 hours. I was just one after another, just to hear what they were saying and the stuff they went through, man. Dude, what they went through. This guy was talking about storming, landing on Normandy Beach, and, all the people in his unit who were killed. And I mean, you can't even you can't hold it. And like he lived his whole life holding it, right?
Wow.
And so, and he was this guy who, and he's saying like, I just never talked about this, and I'm like, how could you live life and not talk about that? But you can, right? Because we compartmentalize.
Right.
Uh, so
Right.
just get kind of obsessed with those stories in a way. So people in the Jewish community in particular have really took it upon themselves in the past couple of decades to document a lot of these stories, because because people were not going to have the opportunities. So anyway,
Right.
and
Right.
people who studied the war and soldiers.
Wow. And that is so interesting to hear. And to those that held those stories and were able to, they're still healthy and, through everything they went through, and like living to that old age is just like amazing. And a student actually sent me an article about like PTSD and trauma and resilience and
Yeah,
overcoming the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
PTSD. And in the article it talked about the importance of like these support systems and structures and uh in order to cultivate some like forms of like resilience. And so it just makes me think about those that went through that and survivors that
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
have
yeah.
that support structure. And maybe those that are speaking, I'd be so curious to know what kind of support structure they did have after, because I can imagine all the loss you probably experienced all the way, or the friends you've lost, family members maybe you've lost.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah.
just, and so that's really interesting to think about,
Dude,
just
yeah. So imagine, having these grandparents, first off, parents, and then later grandparents of people who went through all of this and didn't talk about it. And you always wondered, like, well, there's something about Uncle Ned or Uncle whatever, right? Or like, wait, what? That's, just, man, dude. And even today, right? Because obviously the things just, yeah, man. Things that are still, it's not like it's just the past. I mean, things today. So
right.
anyway,
It's so
man.
heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Rain Journey, just hop on YouTube and just start looking around and you'll find a channel. I don't know what the channel was that I was watching, because I was watching one channel, because all the videos, I was watching a couple different channels, but the one with the soldiers, the US soldiers, was all being uploaded by a single channel. And these videos had, hundreds of thousands and millions of views, finding the stories, just in the YouTube algorithm, you'll find it. Hey, let's bring Patrick on, by the way. Uh,
Nice.
yeah. So Biomod Penn State, I have a story that was passed down to me from my father and uncle from my grandfather about occupied Germany. Yeah. Yeah, the Germans weren't the only ones, man, to commit atrocity. Yeah, no, this one guy actually, the one person whose video I was watching, he was talking about how brutally German anybody associated with the SS for sure, they were just dealt with systematically, very, very, very quickly, very easily, and
Mm.
and very sometimes really horribly. Man, this guy was like the SS in his mind, he was able to justify, but other Germans who may or may not even had a lot of knowledge of what was going on, he told some stories and he didn't feel comfortable about that. So,
Jeez.
all right, Patrick,
Howdy. Can you
how
hear
are you
me?
doing?
Yeah,
What's
what's up?
good?
Dude, you are with the Northern Lights somewhere. That's that's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. No, it's
That's
good to be on. I've been watching you guys for quite some time.
yeah, very cool, man. Well, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
What do you watch? What do you watch for? Like, what are you
Oh
intrigued
man.
about?
Uh okay, so one of my biggest pet peeves is people who are overly sure of themselves about
Hmm.
any given topic, and you are never that. And it's always just nice to see somebody actually attack it. Like I think you said a few classes ago something about like you actually got to be willing to have your mind changed and like want to.
Yeah.
Whereas, most people are not like that at all. And so that's just good that like if you get anything from your class, that would be what you would want to take from it, I would say.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think part of that is due to what you said a few classes ago about expertise, which just it didn't rub me the wrong way. I just felt like you didn't give yourself enough credit because I am also an expert in my field. I'm a subject matter expert in all things technical data. And
Mhm.
I think the biggest piece of that, what you were missing in my opinion, is that it's a relative term. You're an expert relative
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to everybody else, and that's
Yeah.
because of your experiences, because of what you've done. Because
Yeah.
as you know, the more you learn about something, the more you realize you know nothing,
Oh man,
right?
yeah. Like you, for example, okay, see your data,
Hmm.
technical data,
Yeah.
right?
So like
And I
engineering
think,
drawings, models, all that
oh,
stuff.
okay, okay. So
Yeah.
I think, okay, now with AI and stuff, right? You have
Oh
to,
yeah.
man, this shit, it's like a wave that's like crashing over you
Yeah.
so fast.
I'm using well, I mean, I use it now often. I know people have their feelings about it. And to be fair, like you can't just have AI do stuff for you, right? That the best way to use AI is to feed it primary source data. Because
Yeah,
AI is excellent at scrubbing, right? It'll
yeah.
scrub and it'll analyze and display those things which you need, right? So I deal a lot with like, do you know what a DFAR is and a CFAR? Federal acquisition regulations, defense federal acquisition regulations. There's a lot
Uh-huh.
of rules in there when you're acquiring systems through the government. And, you know, I'm an expert enough in that I know when something's wrong, but I have
Yeah.
to go check because obviously, but like before my job would take, oh man, take me forever to look that stuff up. I'd go to, acquisition.org, search for
Uh,
the appropriate, but now I have like all the DFARs downloaded. I'll just throw them into whatever AI and I'll say, okay, what is the requirement for XYZ? It'll pull out those requirements and then I can check, okay, are they meeting this requirement? Are they meeting that requirement? Right. So it's taking my
uh,
workload down from, 2 weeks to review something to, I can review it in like 30 minutes.
dude,
So
that's wild,
Wait,
man.
yeah,
I
it's
like what you're
awesome.
saying. Go ahead, Elijah. Yeah.
I was gonna ask for people like me, would you be able to explain this simply, maybe for the stream? It was more so for me, like this dummies 101
No, you're good. So,
version
okay.
of like
So
what you
let's
do.
say, I got you. So what I do in general.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So do you know what an engineering drawing is?
Okay, right. Yeah,
So think like a blueprint would probably be the most colloquial way to think of it, right?
right. Yep.
So, and it's called a blueprint because, back in the 50s through the 70s, it was blue because of the what do you call it? The chemical that they would dip it in to make everything stay, right? So now what I do for I work defense. So now what I do is, anytime a program needs data, technical data. So if we're acquiring a system, right? We pay somebody to build us something, right? One of the outputs of them building something is how they built it, right? And they have to document how they build it on engineering drawings. It's not just drawings that you have specifications. I mean, it could be any, test reports, first article test, which is like you build something and you inspect it to make sure that it's in accordance with the drawing, if that makes sense. So if I build this little chapstick thing, I don't know if you can see
Yeah,
it, right? I'm gonna measure it. Oh, does the height equal what the drawing says the height
got
equals?
it.
Does it have all the material in accordance
Yeah,
Yeah.
review models and drawings that
right.
are sent to us? Really, it's just a big puzzle. I just love the
Wow.
puzzle of it because some of these
Right.
things are massive systems with tens of thousands of parts, and keeping it all
Man,
straight, making sure
different
everything's
brains
delivered
are
is really
amazing. You know
interesting.
what I mean? How our
Yeah,
brains
that's
work and
cool.
Oh
what
yeah.
we're
Yeah, that's cool.
attuned to being able to do, is amazing. Like what I got
Dude.
from that when you were saying, I was thinking home improvements, measure twice,
Yeah,
cut
yeah,
once.
yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff
Yeah,
you
yeah.
said.
Well, I mean, yeah, measure.
Well,
Yeah,
You
that's
this is
absolutely
like
right.
why. So when we think about AI, but this is the sociology thing, right? Like I remember when I was first studying sociology and demography, so like the early 80s, and we were like, hey, listen, man, at some point in time, the population, the European ancestry population in the United States is going to drop below 50%, you know?
Oh yeah, probably.
And
Yeah.
we're like, oh yeah, okay. But at that point in time, it was, 79% or 81%, whatever. I don't remember what it was, but I'm like, oh yeah, I can't hold that in my mind. Like you can't even see it, can't
Mhm.
envision it, don't know what it's going to mean sociologically. And then so like get on the road here, and I'm like, damn, I mean, like there's nothing. It just understanding the world of sociology and culture and what I talk about. There's nothing that could have prepared me for that. And I think AI is a
That's
very
interesting.
similar thing, man.
Oh
You
yeah,
you know what's coming,
I do. Yeah.
but a lot of us are just like I think I have an idea that something really big is going to happen, but I don't know what it is, and I can't make
I
sense of it.
can say it's not going to be as drastic as people think it will be as soon as they think it will be,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it will be drastic late, like probably like 15 years post
yeah,
what they're saying it'll be.
yeah.
That's how those things, I mean, that's how that always, you see it all the time. New
Yep.
technology comes out. Oh, it's going to change the world. And it's like,
Yeah.
it probably will, but it's going to take some time because there's still a
Mhm.
lot of stuff you got to work at. Like I said, the fuzziness of AI, like I would never have it create something for me for scratch. I will only ever feed that thing primary source documents.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'll feed it a standard and say, what are the requirements with respect
Yeah.
to X, Y,
Yeah.
or Z? You can't, the way I test it, because again, I'm a subject matter expert in that particular field, is I ask AI, this is how I test it. I ask it what a data list is. And a data list has a very explicit definition in accordance with ASME Y14. I want to say it's 24. And it can never get it quite right. And that's how I know it's just not quite there
We're
yet.
not quite there.
But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
if I feed it
Yeah.
ASME Y14 24, I think it's 24, it will give it to me correctly, right?
Ah,
So
damn.
that's how you kind of know you got
Yeah.
to feed it that information so that you can
But
use it appropriately.
we were going to we're doing that. And
Oh
so
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
100%.
yeah, no,
100%.
it's sort of like climate change, right?
Mhm.
It's like, look, man, I can't envision what it truly means for the
Right, right.
climate to change the way people are saying, like, listen, man, this is gonna happen. And I can't, we can see, okay, we have a stronger hurricane here, or typhoon there, or this, that, the other thing. Okay, got it. But like, I cannot envision a pretty serious transformation to the ecosystem, to the
Right,
climate. I
right.
can't in my head. I can't do that. And so therefore I'm just living day by day.
Well, I mean, humans are reactionary by nature, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't, I
yeah,
don't, I mean,
yeah.
people can guess, but it's why,
Yeah,
well,
well, it's like death, right? Once in
yeah,
a while, I'm like, oh
yeah,
yeah, death. And the other day, I was sitting in my office and I said, "Wait, hang on, man. Listen, everything here, everything, you're gonna leave this. You're not taking a single thing with you, man. It gets all you're going, and it's all going to be here. And my wife and I were talking, and we were like, everything in this house that we own will one day not be in this house. It will just be dispersed out into the world. But I can't hold that in my mind, man. I just can't. I can't
Well,
hold it
for
for longer than just like 10
well, for
seconds
you
or so.
sociology guys, if you really want to get tripped out, take physics 3, electromagnetism and waves.
Uh-huh.
Dude, I was tripped out for so long because everything you don't see what you're seeing. Everything is a
Yeah.
wave. If you put your hand on something, it should go through. There's so much space everywhere. Oh God. Dude, I was messed
Yeah.
up for like half a year after taking that class, man. It was
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
yeah,
Very cool, actually.
yeah.
Man.
I
Hey,
can't
so
even wrap my head
where
around
are
it
you,
yet.
by the
Yeah.
way?
So
Where do you live?
I'm out of, you ever heard of Rock Island? It's a arsenal out in right in between Illinois and Iowa.
Mm, okay.
So I'm on the river basically. So
Uh,
the Mississippi.
all right.
I'm right on the
Okay.
river
What do you
between
mean when
Illinois and Iowa.
I
you
passed.
say
Yeah.
it's an arsenal? What's an
It's
arsenal?
just a military base. That's the better
Oh,
word.
okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Facts.
yeah.
Okay,
I
cool.
passed through there two different ways on either Route 80 on one
Yeah,
and
yeah,
a different route on
yeah.
another
Did you see
one.
the
Different,
big truck stop? Like the world's largest truck stop?
maybe.
Yeah, you probably did. You might not have noticed it, but you probably saw it if you're going on the 80 passing through.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, but I'm not from here like the lady before. I'm not from here either. I'm from all over, but I lived most of my life in Washington State. So,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
she's
Washington
not
State.
wrong. It is a bit of a culture shock.
Yeah, the Midwest is its own place
Very
too, isn't
much so.
it? Yeah.
People are very friendly,
Yeah, very
but
friendly.
odd,
Yeah.
but odd.
Something else.
Mhm.
It's oh man, I'm actually sad for what like I would say like me as a person is very much how Washington State was 10,
Okay.
15 years ago, which is you
Yeah,
ever heard of like
Cascadia.
Cascadia?
Yep.
Like that was like a thing, right? It's very much like
Yep.
almost like libertarian, live and let live. But like now, like I lived in Whatcom County, so like all the as far north as you can go, just below the Canadian border. And it was very much like that. And now it's like completely like people when I go back home are very full of
Mm. Hmm.
themselves in an
So this is
interesting
New
way.
Vancouver, near Vancouver.
Near Vancouver,
Yeah.
yeah, I could it'd take me 30 minutes to drive
Okay,
to
I
Vancouver
got
from
you.
where I lived.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You know.
dude, the whole culture in so many different ways is changing, and
Yeah, I feel like people my age feel I feel like what's the word I'm looking for? Like almost out of place, like
uh-huh.
almost out of place in a
Uh-huh.
weird way. Like I'm very apolitical. I actually hate politics. Maybe it's
Hmm.
because I've worked in the government my whole life, um but yeah, it feels like politics is like almost flip-flopped. Rage Against the Machines is a really good example of that. I used to love Rage Against, well, I still do because separate the
Hmm.
art from the artist. But now it's like they're Rage for the Machine. You're like, what? Like I don't
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
understand. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Those
Yeah.
those are on forces burn crosses,
Yeah.
right? That was like a thing,
Yeah.
and like it's very bizarre. I feel
Yeah.
very out of place. I
Yeah,
already
I
didn't
say
like politics in the
I
first place,
say that a
but
lot. Like, people, so many people are really angry, and I'm like, wait, what are you angry about actually?
yeah,
Like,
I know.
it's like,
Well, and traveling, I've done a ton, I was in the military and then I did military contracting all over the world. I did maritime security. So, the Captain Phillips movie.
hmm,
So that's
hmm,
why I had a job actually. So insurance companies started jacking up the prices on shipping boats. And so they would hire. So I was reconnaissance in the Marine Corps, and we did a lot of VBSS, which is I have no idea what it stands for, but we did stuff on boats. And so I got a job doing that, and I've been all over. So I'd fly into Sri Lanka, go up to Pakistan. No, 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 Sri Lanka to India to Pakistan to not Cairo, but the Suez Canal,
yeah,
and then from the Suez Canal down the coast of Africa, right? And
wow,
that gives you a good appreciation for here. And so
yeah,
it always bothers me when people are just up in arms about it's like, dude, it's all
yeah,
good, bro. Like
yeah,
life is good
yeah,
here.
man.
Like
Yeah.
you don't understand how good you really actually have it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I got that.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like
And
it's
how
okay.
and you can find really cool things
Oh yeah.
everywhere in the world, man. There's
Oh,
some
I
really
love
cool shit happening.
Sri Lanka, I think was my favorite.
Yeah.
I got stuck there for like 3 weeks once, and it was the best 3 weeks ever. I just drank on the beach all day
Oh,
for like three,
dude.
because beer was like 79 cents
Yeah.
for like a red stripe. It was the best. It was the best.
Dude. And when you do
Awesome.
that, see, that's the thing, right? When you do that, but you also see the struggles that
Oh
people
yeah.
have. And then you
Yeah.
come back here and you be like, wait, what? My neighbors, like, wait, what's the struggle, man? You got this really
Dude.
nice house, you have central heating, you got
Yeah.
like,
I mean, you got people, and this was very common in every country I ever went to. Um, you just have people who sell stuff just lining it, but
yeah,
they'll take tires and they'll make shoes out of it. And it's like,
yeah,
I mean, they're just trying to live. They're just trying to get through the day.
yeah,
But like, imagine an American having to like scrounge that way.
yeah,
I can't, I've never, uh,
yeah,
where do you find that in America? I don't know.
yeah,
Although it does suck being white over there because they think you have money. And so
yeah,
they like surround you trying to get you to buy
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, dude, I have no
Totally.
money. It's in my bank.
Right,
I
right.
can't give it to you. Like I want to help you, but I can't. So
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
you
And
ever
yet
get that?
compared to to them, you got you
Oh
know like
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
yeah, you're rich. I remember like like in Haiti, this kid was, like fixing iPhones on the side of the road,
Oh
man. He's
wow, that's
sitting
cool.
on an old tire. He's got these tools that
Yeah,
they were not the Apple tools,
yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
The
yeah.
official Apple tools. It was like an old pick and a screwdriver and God knows what, man. And he's
Wow.
like popping iPhone cases apart and fixing things and changing screens. I'm like, bro, how you doing that? I mean, like, how are you
Yeah,
doing that?
it
Guy
is
was like
impressive.
7 years old, you
Yeah,
know,
Wow.
that's impressive.
and
Wow.
sitting on the side, sitting, as I recall, he wasn't wearing shoes. He's sitting on the side of the road, and he's just, like the industriousness and the ability to do that.
Yeah. See, that's what I don't get, you know, kind of about the Bad Bunny thing. I don't think it was the language though. I
Yeah,
disagree that it was the language that people got mad about. Um, uh,
Mm.
but but I would take somebody who busted their ass to get here to have a better life over
yeah,
somebody who was born here who complains
yeah,
incessantly about how bad it
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So I honestly don't understand why people, I guess you could call it the right, are having an issue. It makes no sense to me. Like at all. It's like
yeah,
just trade. You know what I mean? If you really don't like
yeah,
it here, you go somewhere else then, I guess. And
yeah,
then we'll take these
yeah.
people who want to be here and want to
I
work and build a
I
better life
hear
for
that.
themselves.
Well, this is why, in a way, the whole world is. I mean, immigrants, in a way, are both disliked and liked. They're
Mm,
disliked by the people,
hmm.
but they're liked by entrepreneurs,
Yeah, yeah,
right? People
absolutely.
who want industrious workers and
Yeah.
folks. It's like, yeah, you enjoy that. The crime is always lower. Like you don't
Mm,
think that, people don't think that, but they're less likely to commit crimes and they're more likely to work harder. Of course, also more likely willing to be exploited because they have to be, if they don't have papers.
that's fair.
But I hear what you're saying. Yeah, you would take that.
Yeah,
I have a similar
100%.
thing. Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't like complaining, I guess, maybe.
Dude, everyone who works for me in some kind of capacity, right? Electrician, plumber, uh, carpentry, house, whatever it is, right? Like I do basic stuff. I grew up, I know just enough about pretty much anything that I can do basic things like,
Mhm.
install my light above me or, change an outlet and do different things, right? Um, But everybody who has worked with me, I ask them about the workforce and how it's going and how their workers are, and every single one of them is like, God, we can't find anybody. They work for a couple weeks and then they
Yeah.
quit. But we had this one guy from
Yeah, yeah.
Ecuador,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And
Hey
he's like
man.
that guy. Everybody has the same story.
Yep.
So funny.
Yeah,
That is like I said, I just don't like complaining, I guess, but
yeah.
And you know, I've lived all over the place, so I've been around a lot. I was adopted and my mom was adopted. So it's like double adopted removed, but my grandpa was like from Italy, like from Sicily on the
Hmm.
boat during the Great Depression also. So maybe that kind of colors my view of it as
Yeah, like
well.
old school
Oh, old
Italian.
school. Oh yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm like
yeah,
Irish and English, but he's very much I grew up like cooking lasagna with him, you know,
yeah.
Sunday sauce and all that stuff. So
It's awesome.
There's
it was,
something
oh
about,
yeah, yeah,
there's something about that, and it's unfortunate that we, we have people chirping in our ears about those people. It's always those people. But if we didn't have that, like here in this country, right? If you talk to people who are undocumented, and you're like, hey man, give me your story, and you watch them and you follow them, what they're doing day after day after day, they're not
yeah,
sitting around doing nothing, man, because you can't
right,
survive here like that.
right.
You just would be impressed as hell by what you see and what you observe. And
Oh,
it's unfortunate
absolutely.
we have people chirping in our ears, dividing us, because it just really
Yeah,
doesn't do anything.
yeah, again, this is why I hate politics because I'm sure it was like this before. You just see it more now because of the internet,
Hmm.
obviously. But I always look at it as so like people who tend to be more left leaning, they care about certain things, right?
Hmm.
People who tend to be more right leaning care about other things.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean that these things don't matter and that these
Yep.
things don't matter,
Yep.
right? In order to come to an actual good solution, you kind of need to account for both. And that's what both parties are supposed to do, right? It's like, hey, I don't know well, the immigration one's a good example. Obviously, you can't have hundreds of thousands, millions of people coming over with
Hmm.
literally no process. Like that doesn't
Yep.
make any sense, right? But also, you know, from the left side, you'd be like, yes, but we need to help and take care of it. It's like, okay, cool, let's do that. And then also make sure that we have a good process in place so that you can,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
not bring in things that you don't want to bring in or something like that. But yeah, they like don't work together. I don't understand it. I don't
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
like these things matter and these things
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah. That's right.
Cool.
That's
So
right.
then figure out and no, well, that's the problem. Nobody's gonna be happy when you come to that solution, right? I think maybe that's the problem. Is the
Well,
actual
me,
fix will not make anybody happy. I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah. That's like, it's like if you build your system around elections,
Yeah,
and
that drives me
and you
crazy.
and you build your system around having to fund your own
Hmm.
elections,
Yeah.
right? Well, then you build your system around disparaging the other people and
Yeah,
not
drives me
coming to
crazy.
some kind of understanding about what the best possible solution is.
No,
The
I
more,
agree
yeah,
100%.
so the more you can divide people, the better off you are,
Yeah,
you
because like I
know.
said, you know, they consider, I forget, Jonathan Haidt talks about a lot where the different sides, you know,
Yeah.
like, it's like justice, liberty, fairness.
Yeah, those are
You know
all
what I mean?
important,
Those
man.
are all, yeah, they're all important. It's
Yeah.
just these people tend to think about these things more. These people tend to think about those things more, right? But they're all important. You got to balance them all appropriately.
Yeah.
So the only way to
Yeah.
do that is to have people who care about both come together.
Yeah, yeah. And
But
if we
people are
did
people.
that, then the whole political system itself would just like collapse in a way.
Well, I don't know. I think that's what it was intended to do. I mean, that's why it was set up, in my opinion, at least. I think that's why it
Well,
was set up to do that.
here's something. Something that really helped me to understand that, even the comment that I just made, um, that somebody wrote this book, and I was listening to them talk about the book, and they put the numbers together about the political parties because they
Hmm.
were saying, listen, man, it's not the politicians, it's the parties.
Hmm.
Each party is a massive infrastructure organization on its own
Yeah.
that it's billion-dollar entities,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So you got all these people that are in
Self-interested.
place. Yeah, they have to self-reproduce themselves. And
Yep.
and the party itself isn't just the people that work for the Democratic Republican Party or Republican
No,
Party,
I get you. I get
Democratic,
what you're
right? Yeah,
saying.
okay. But they're all the people who are printing all the pamphlets, and they're da, 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 so on, da, 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 da. They walk down the elections, and it's like all of this stuff requires the battling, in order for
Hmm.
these people to reproduce themselves. And that's the problem, right? It's the parties. And I went, damn man, that makes a lot of sense. It helped put a few things in place for me.
No, that's fair. I see no. Yeah, I could see that absolutely.
Yeah, that's kind of a
But how do you fix that? Oh, that
yeah, I
also
don't know,
that also
man.
drives me crazy. People who think, oh, if you just do this one thing, it's like people don't understand system of systems. Like the whole
Yeah,
defund the police thing. It's like, oh my God, dude. Do you know the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, tenth order, you know, causes of doing something like that? It's like, oh, do
yeah,
this. It's like,
yeah,
dude, the
yeah,
government is made up of people. Each of those
yeah,
people are a variable. We can't even figure out, I mean, three body problem, that's a thing, right? We can't even
yeah,
figure out when you have three variables. How can you figure out what's going to happen when you have
yeah. This is what
360 million variables? Like, what are you talking about?
yeah, 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 yeah,
It's
yeah,
hard enough to do like root cause analysis on like if a screw is too long and it's, digging into a piece of metal, the root cause analysis on that, which is complex but simple with respect to a political system, like that would take
yeah.
months and months. You're having to go through all the different dimensions where the stack ups are. It's like that's hard enough in and of itself. Jeez, oh man, people drive me crazy, dude.
Yeah. Dude, I like that. That's a great example. The screw's too long. It's either the screw itself is too long or what you're screwing it into
Yeah, yeah.
isn't thick enough, right?
Or it's the part that's screwed way over here, the tolerance is off,
Yeah.
which is causing an arc, which raises it up here, and then you're not
Yeah.
accounting for the radial distance. Like it's crazy. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
That
That's so
alone
cool.
is hard enough to solve.
Yeah,
Now
that's so
take
cool.
an entire political system of 380 million variables. It's like yeah, people who, like I said at the beginning, people who are too confident about what they say drive me nuts because
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
you can't know. There's no way to know.
It is
You could
really,
try.
yeah, it is really interesting. It's sort of like me, my it's like when I'm talking about things, uh, like yesterday in class, I'm talking about the Bad Bunny thing, right? I'm like, look, this whole area of the country was, controlled by Spain, right? Well, it didn't mean anything but I didn't have time to go like, but hang on, but let me
Yeah,
say what that means. Cause like there weren't many Spaniards there. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
It's basically colored pink because it's all native indigenous peoples, but there are a few, like, but I didn't say that. And so now I got to make, it's just like, oh shit, you can't, it's so hard at every moment
Hmm.
to show the complexity of,
See, that's how I know you're an expert. You do not give yourself enough credit because,
yeah,
like I said, every expert has this problem where, I have to write standard operating procedures all the time.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I never know where to start. It's
yeah,
like, okay, do I start with how do I install the system I even need on my laptop? Like, do I start there? Or do I start, once you open the thing that you need, now this is what you do. Well, it's a complex program, so do I have to teach you what all the, but you know what I mean? There's just like everything
right,
layers and spider webs out, and there's a million different
right.
paths, and there's no way to know. I hate it. I always say you have to take this class, this class, this class, this class, this. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And okay, now from there, this is what you do because there's no
Listen,
other way to do
man.
it.
So here's where AI is good for you, right? Just put it all
Yeah,
into AI and be like,
yeah.
hey, man, listen, write the
I have
specs
done
for
that.
this.
Yeah, I have done that. And
Yeah.
it does
Yeah.
work quite well.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Oh, dude. Yeah, it really is refreshing. And I think that, and you are right. The older you get, the more you get into something.
Mhm.
Elijah, remember this, my friend, this where you're at.
Taking it
the
in.
more the more time you have to see how complicated things really are.
Oh, so
And
everything's
man, it's
nothing
just
is simple.
like for example, I have a former student who worked in security in Washington, in the State
Okay.
Department, the White
Yep.
House, and so on, right? And I would talk to her, and I'd be like, "All right, tell me what's." She couldn't tell me anything of substance,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
she told me enough to know that, like, yeah, when we're in conversation with the Chinese or somebody, it's like it's the layers of conversation that are
So many.
happening there,
Oh
man. The
yeah.
things that both sides are thinking about it's so complicated
Yep.
that it's like you never would understand.
And you also have to take into account you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
That's a big one. Like you
yeah,
do not know what you do not, which is why I never give a concrete answer. Unless it's written down, because again, I'm a standards
yeah,
guy. Like I sit on the ASME board for like model-based definition and stuff like that. But unless it's like written down, like codified, I rarely give any answer that's concrete at all. And if I do, I say that it is my opinion. You know what I mean? It is my opinion that, because you don't know what you don't know, right? Even somebody who's been in it for, I don't know, 15, 20 years now, you just don't know what you don't know.
Okay, so here, I'll give you an example of that. Just happened to me a little bit ago. So Trump came out with this statement about Epstein, and he said, hey, or they said, when he found out that Epstein, what things that were going on, he
Mhm.
stopped. No, he said to this police, this is what it was. It was a police chief down in Florida. He came out and he said, listen, going back like 15 years with Trump,
Yeah.
I had a conversation with him. I remember a conversation when he said, found out we were looking at Epstein's activities, and Trump said, "Thank God you're looking at this guy. He's been like doing this really horrible stuff forever and ever and ever. And like, yeah, you need to. It's about time you guys like took this guy down.
Yeah.
And then I look and I see so somebody comments, it's like, oh, see, Trump knew of Epstein. They're all in it together. And I'm like, wait, first off, man, we don't know anything
No.
about what the real conversation was with
No.
the police officer. Secondly, why do you naturally don't think that Trump ever tells the truth, which is like, of course not. Which is for and second and thirdly, like, how do you have any idea what any of them were thinking at the time or what they knew about one another? Like, we have not a single idea about what was going on,
Yeah.
and that it's quite possible that that was the actual exact conversation that
That
these two
launched.
people
Yeah.
had.
Yeah.
It's like, and meanwhile, people like typing away or whatever. It's like, oh my God, do you see? It's like, oh man, like I don't. And so that's one of the things that I struggle with a lot is that,
No, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I forget which razor it is. I don't know if it's Occam's or Hanlon's razor, but do not attribute to malice, which can be explained by stupidity, I think is
uh-huh, uh-huh.
because the government is very much that. People like their conspiracy theories, but you work in the government long enough and you're like,
Yeah.
it's not, dude. It's not. I mean, there's some smart,
Yeah.
very smart people, but
Yeah.
there's simply not enough where you could have any sort of real conspiracy. It's more like the banality of evil, really. It's like the
Yeah.
guy, oh, they said to do that. Okay, I will do that then, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very rarely like an actual
Like
conspiracy.
my brother worked out in Vegas at what's the area 59 49, what is it?
Area
Area
51.
51,
Yeah.
right? So he flew into there every day for a couple of
Yeah.
years, right? He flew in the morning, flew out at night, lived in Vegas. And I'm like, and he's like, it's amazing to hear all these people telling me about what I see every day,
Yeah, yeah,
what's on the
yeah.
base,
Yep,
the
yeah.
hidden places on the base.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
like, I ran wire through something. It's really quite astounding to like
Yeah. It's all the
hear
buildings
that.
are probably really old and dilapidated and need to be
Yeah, yeah.
updated and
And
yeah.
it's just like, oh man, I
It's
don't
in the
get
middle of the desert,
it.
which is where I work. I know I'm in Iowa, but I actually kind of a remote worker for a test range out in the desert as well. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's never yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy,
People
man.
people like to have a reason, right?
Yeah,
People
yeah,
like to
yeah,
have a
yeah.
reason. My background is actually material science engineering, which is
Hmm.
interesting
Hmm.
how I do what I do now. But the once you get high enough in material science, the answer is almost always lowest energy state. And I
Uh,
attribute that to people. I think that fits with people really well.
yeah.
What is their lowest energy state? That's probably what they're doing. You know what I mean? It's hard to actually consider all these things because there's just so much to consider. So they go with what's easiest because that's the lowest energy
Yeah,
state.
because we want to know, right? I want to go
Yeah,
to bed
yeah,
at night thinking that
yeah.
I got something figured out.
It's also probably less scary to think, well, in my opinion, it's probably less scary to think that somebody actually does know what's going on and is kind of orchestrating versus, in my opinion, what the reality is that nobody knows what's going on.
Back in the 1980s, in the 70s, the multiple times when the bombs almost
Yeah,
went up,
yeah,
it was really pretty much an accident,
yeah. I believe that
like-
wholeheartedly.
And same with like you think about the COVID and so on. It's like I have a COVID thing. It's like, can you imagine? Like, wait, all these people got together around the world, the Chinese, the Americans, they all came together with a virus got created. They
Yeah, yeah.
decided, hey, we got to make this shit up. As opposed, we got to come up with an answer for the world. and then try to get them all to do one thing, as opposed to, damn, this thing happened. Either the Chinese, they'd escaped the Chinese or whatever happened. It's like,
Yeah.
now we're just flying by the seat of our pants. What the fuck? What are we going to do, man? What are we going to do?
I promise you, it's very much flying by the seat of their pants. Because
Yeah.
anytime something like that happens, like let's say an airplane goes down, it takes so long to figure out
Yeah.
I mean, it takes months. I mean, I bet it's taken a year and a half before just to figure out why an airplane malfunctioned and went down, like if it was an F-35 or an F-18, something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
actual, and that, again, that's a simple, relatively speaking to what the COVID was, right? That's a simple explanation.
Right. So right afterwards, a couple of days later, you hear, okay, it was a system failure.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
The plane went down. System
Yeah.
failure.
Yeah. Okay, where
that's
in the
great.
system? Yeah, what part?
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah. I
so
hear that. And for me, I think it's been only in the past probably like 15 years that I've been completely comfortable just going to bed at night, not knowing, not having any
yeah.
idea.
I'm
Yeah.
so used to not knowing because again, when you're an expert in a field, you live in the area of not knowing. So I'm
Yeah.
always dude, I have every standard pulled up on my computer all the time. You know what I mean? Because I just get bombarded because as a SME, you just get
Uh-huh.
bombarded with questions
Uh-huh.
all the time. And it's like, shit, I don't know. You know what I say?
Yeah.
I don't know. Let me look that
Yeah.
up for you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like
Same here.
I'm
I'm
very
just in.
comfortable not knowing. Yeah.
All I do all day long, all night long, is I'm just looking up data and
Yeah.
information, man. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to figure it out as I go along, and
Yeah.
it's fun for me. I enjoy it, just like you enjoy your work, right?
Oh, I
Like
love
I
it.
enjoy
Yeah.
it, and so it's like, oh well, I could just sit here and look. I look through data,
Yeah.
like I'm just like trying to figure stuff, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's cool. It's really cool but to be in the unknown, right?
Yeah, I enjoy it. It's like I said, it's just a big puzzle. To me, it's just a big, complex problem that you get to solve. And it's really satisfying when you actually do solve it.
Yeah, yeah.
If you do. Sometimes you
So,
don't.
so my wife, for her PhD, she studied human development, but she really has a PhD in the equation for a straight line. That's it, basically.
Oh,
She
okay.
studied 5 years.
Yeah, y equals mx plus b.
So
Nice.
she's taking the stats course with a guy who was just
I
really a
hate stats.
brilliant. Yeah,
Yeah.
but this guy, he was just a brilliant thinker, right? And so they did. Okay, so we got a grid, right? So we have education, income. Okay, cool. Then we think we can plot that and we can see something. But now let's throw in sex. Okay, so
Oh,
we have
interesting.
education, income, sex, or gender, right? So now we have
They put
three.
that on 3x. Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
three acts. Okay, so now
Okay.
we're gonna she's going like, oh shit, oh, this is
Yeah.
not possible. I can't even envision it here. But they sort of made this little quadrant. It's like, okay, we can kind of envision it. We see it. Okay, but now let's throw a fourth one in. Boom, it just blows
Oh man.
apart,
Oh
man.
yeah,
Then now you
100%.
got 5, 6, 7, 8. And
Well,
now
and
we want
that,
to
yeah.
understand why it is, for example, that when we look at crime rates in the United States, people of African ancestry, Black Americans, have slightly higher crime rates
Mhm.
than white people. Now you want to explain that. Explain that.
That's exactly
Right?
what I was talking about with the variables, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as
Yeah.
she added that third variable, the complexity of the system went up through the roof. I mean,
Totally.
maybe you can get a best fit surface on there, but what does that tell you? You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then as soon as you added the fourth, and that's just four variables. That's
Yeah.
it, right? There's so many variables when you ask something.
Yeah.
That's why I hate politics because
And
like this,
so
oh, this is the solution. It's like, no, dude, no. What are you talking about?
no, right. And so you take that crime one that I just gave. Now
Yeah,
we're in the world of sociology here. It's like
right.
people want to know, well, what is going on here? And I'm like, well, you got an infinite number of variables,
Yeah.
and one of them is decisions that individual people make.
Mhm.
But you got to know that there are all of these other variables in place.
Can extend it, you can make it
Yeah.
tall. It's like, dude, oh God, this is why I
Yeah,
hate
that's the
stats. Stats drive me
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Yeah, but you love them at the same time, right? Because you
Yeah,
understand it.
yeah.
Yeah, well, that was for her. That's when she said, and then she was in class, right, with this guy, right? There's a bunch of other PhD students who are like maybe class of 15 or 20. And she said, wait a minute, hang on a second. Let's go back to and look at what you just did. And my wife she's really, really Elijah, right? She's really smart, man. She's
Yeah.
like, she blows it up in that moment. And she's like, holy shit, you're telling me that this number that we use to decide whether something is statistically significant
Mhm.
is built on this model over here, which has absolutely no meaning whatsoever because we can't go beyond two variables,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I get that. And she's like turning to the class, like, are you seeing this? And everyone else in the class is like, nah, I'm not really getting what you're saying. And then she's like, oh my God. And that was when everything changed for her. Her whole intellectual journey in the world of statistics completely changed.
And
Yeah.
to be fair though, you know, you do have to try to figure it out. And those are the
Totally.
tools that we have. So I
Yeah.
don't want to like crap on it too much because, those are the tools that you have. You
Yep.
do the best with what you got and
Yep.
you try and make correlations.
Yep.
Because
Yeah,
that's really
basic
all you can do.
correlations. Yeah. And we
Yeah.
try to build causality from the complex correlations that we see and hope we can get there one day. But
Yeah, I guess the issue is for maybe the layman is they put too much stock in it, maybe. It's like this,
yeah,
it's almost like this is that correlation is more of like like a fuzzy barrier or you know what I'm trying to say? It's like
yeah,
it's like a guide. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
that's
It's like a
right. Yeah,
guide.
that's right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It
But
doesn't
don't
explain
put
it
your
all.
stake down.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah,
put your
yeah.
stake
Don't
down
put your stake
anywhere.
down.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which in a way is for me, that's how one of the reasons I teach in the way that I do, because I just can't, it takes, in order for me to put my stake down to actually give a lecture in class where I would say like, okay, let me try to explain to you what it is I'm seeing. It would be so boring, man. It would be
Mhm.
boring. Nobody would
Yeah.
follow. They don't care. It doesn't matter. So it's like, okay. So then I stop.
Yeah.
Once I got insightful enough to realize that I
Oh yeah.
can't be as insightful as I want to be, then I'm like, okay,
But you do not give yourself enough credit. I will say
all
that. I
right,
don't think you do.
I'll work on that.
I
All
don't
right,
think
I'll
you
work
do.
on that. I think it helps me really. It helps
Oh
me
yeah.
to laugh at
I
myself.
I get that. I get that.
Yeah, yeah.
I
But
do.
all
I
right,
do
hey,
get that.
listen, man, it's really cool talking to you.
Thank you. You as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
It was
it's really
fun.
nice. Thanks for watching the
Oh yeah,
videos
I
and
love
stuff,
it.
man.
I love it. I love hearing the different. Some of them drive me crazy because again, they're very exclamatory statements, but it's like,
Yeah,
but they're
yeah.
like you always say, they are students, they're young.
Yeah,
It's all
yeah,
good.
totally, man.
It's all
Totally.
good.
Yeah, you're 18. We were talking about somebody the other day in one of the recent classes. It's like 18 years old and making certain statements. I'm like, well, I would have said that when I was 18, but
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I
Tomorrow
was
we're
live
actually
at
gonna
18.
we're actually gonna do a two-part class. What we're gonna do tomorrow and then next Tuesday, and we're gonna look at the immigration issue, undocumented immigration and ICE.
Mm, mm,
And we're gonna break it down in class about, okay, what are the issues? And so we're gonna just maybe pick out like six or seven.
yeah.
And then we're gonna like, okay, what are the questions in this issue? What do we have to answer to really decide whether we should let ICE keep doing what they're doing or we should stop this nonsense, right?
Right, right.
And I mean, it's not nonsense and we need to continue to do it, or it is nonsense and we need to stop. And so
Right.
I'm gonna walk students through how you would assess this and let
Yeah.
them discover it and see it.
Assess it for
So
themselves. I
yeah,
agree.
it's gonna be a cool class. Yeah, it'll
That
be a
sounds
really cool
fun.
class. Um,
Awesome. Thank you
all
very
right,
much.
man. In the
Yeah,
meantime,
thank
enjoy
you.
those northern lights.
Oh, I love them. Yeah.
Have you ever seen them, by the way?
Yeah, we saw them here. I want to say it was like a month and a half ago. They were out bright. It was crazy. Yeah,
Oh,
it was
damn.
beautiful actually.
Oh,
I think it was
all
like a
right.
month ago, maybe a month and a half.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember when they were kind of hit a
Oh
while.
yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, man.
Anyway, thank
All right,
you.
Patrick. Yeah,
You guys
thanks,
have a good
man.
one.
All
Thank
right,
you
we'll see
too.
you. Yeah. All right, dog. We are
Awesome.
I think we're done, man. Yeah. It's going to be a good class tomorrow. Dark Wizard Prince. I think it'll be a really good class. And I'm going to be more active in it. Yeah, instead of like I'm really
Right.
going to lead it and use students to come up with answers to
Yeah.
questions. So yeah.
I'll be watching that one. Yeah. You said it's called
All right, man.
what? Dark.
No, I was responding to Dark Wizard
Oh,
Prince on the
I thought you
chat.
said that's the title of the
Who wrote
Dark Wizard.
Dark Wizard Prince? Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
Good stuff. We need to have guests on more often. I feel like it's
No, it
really a
really is
fun
fun
time.
talking to people. Yeah, I really enjoy it. Yeah, yeah, instead of just you and I yammering on about whatever. I don't know.
Yo, facts. Add a third person to that.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah, let somebody else yammer on. All right, listen, man. Jeff's still working on the on the his computer might have crashed again. Yeah. All right, listen, man. Let's hop off here and get we'll rock on and we'll see you on the flip side, man.